950 of them civilians, 330 of them children. And what killed them? What were the Israeli soldiers using? They were bombing with US-made bombs. They were flying US-made bombers. They were dropping bombs from US-made helicopters. They were driving US-made Caterpillar bulldozers that they were using to demolish people's homes. And who paid for those Caterpillar bulldozers and those helicopters? Yeah, I see hands raising around the room. We paid for them. Our tax dollars paid for them. And yet our government sat silent as not only international law was violated, but our own US domestic law. The Arms Export Control Act that says you can't do that. You can't use US supplied military equipment for illegal wars. It's time there was accountability. Part of the cost of war is not only the financial cost, it's not only the human cost, it's also the cost to our national soul, if such a thing exists. But certainly what does exist, it's a cost to our standing in the world and our commitment to being a nation of laws and not of people. What controls it is law. That's what President Obama says, and it's up to us to hold him accountable to that promise. To remind him that he's not going to pay a big price for that. He's going to pay a big price if he doesn't make good on that promise. The cost of wars, all of these wars, has been enormous. Since 2001, the cost we have already paid for the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and that's not counting the costs to come in taking care of our soldiers when they come home so grievously injured. Injured in their minds, injured in their bodies, injured in their souls. The cost has been already $896 billion. Almost $1 trillion already, with $2 trillion more to go. $224 billion of that just for the war in Afghanistan. The war some people thought was a good war. The people of Maryland alone, we're meeting now in the state of Maryland, $17.5 billion since 2001. $4.5 billion just for Afghanistan, just for the war in Afghanistan. What could you do with those billions? You could have health care for 867,000 people. You could pay for housing units, apartments, 23,699 apartments. 1,702,000 children could get health care. You think that would make us safer than going to war on the other side of the world and making everyone hate us? This is what we have to remind our members of Congress, our president. We elected you for real change, change we can believe in. Your election was an astonishing accomplishment for a nation whose history is grounded in genocide and slavery to elect an African American. What does that say about what we as movements have done in this country? But we haven't finished. We haven't finished yet. Afghanistan is a failing war. Our people are learning that now, partly because of the work you all have been doing since 2001 and before. Since the work from Vietnam, more and more people are saying we have to prevent this from becoming Obama's Vietnam. Stanley Carno, the great historian of Vietnam, was consulted by the White House. I was glad to hear that the other day. He got a call from the White House asking for information. What do you think we can learn from Vietnam? And he said, we can learn, what we have to learn is that we shouldn't have been there in the first place. That's the lesson of Vietnam. We shouldn't have gone in the first place, and we shouldn't be there now. Every country that has tried to occupy Afghanistan has said Afghanistan is the graveyard of empires. President Obama is a brilliant academic. He knows we're not going to be different. He knows it. Was it only because he was afraid that because he was basing his campaign on his opposition to the war in Iraq that he thought he had to find a war he could be for? Is that why we're in Afghanistan still now? I hope not. Everybody in the White House and around the White House and in Washington 80-20 divide of our money. 80% for economic development and diplomacy, and only 20% on the war. Now, it's up to me, I'd say we need like 100 and 0. But what are they doing? They say 80-20, they're doing 99-1 in the other direction. Actually, that's not right, I lied. They're doing 97-3 in the other direction. What are they doing? What are they thinking? The Secretary of Defense has said there's no military solution for Afghanistan, and yet it continues. The President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, has said there's no military solution for Afghanistan, and yet what are they doing? The first thing they did was to announce we're sending 21,000 new troops. Then we're going to have a strategy discussion. Hello? How backwards is that? You decide your strategy first. Then you decide why you can pull out the troops and bring them home, not send 21,000 more. The Vietnam parallel, the quagmire image is what we are dealing with today. And that's what we have to go back to. Those are the lessons. We shouldn't have been there in the first place. We're supporting a corrupt government that has no local support. It's not going to work. It's not making anyone safer. The Carnegie Institute for International Peace has said very clearly that the first step towards ending the resistance in Afghanistan that is responsible for the killing of American troops is to pull out the troops. That's what's going to be necessary. The definition of insanity is doing one thing over and over again and thinking it's going to come out differently. Didn't they learn it from Vietnam? You all learned it. Those of you who fought in Vietnam, those of you who fought the war against the war in Vietnam, you know it. It's our job to make sure the rest of Washington gets it. There are bills in the House, there's a president in the White House, there are members of Congress going home on their vacation, so to speak, and there are young men and women and older ones being shipped off again to Afghanistan. It's not going to work. It's not going to end terrorism. It's not going to bring democracy and women's liberation and education and prosperity to Iraq or to Afghanistan, any more than military aid to Israel is going to bring human rights for Palestinians or Israelis. We have to stop it. The military budget is our target. Mobilization is what we need. We have to turn hope into action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phillis. And turning hope into action reminds me that there will be